The LA Kings deserve to win, and they earned the win in Toronto. The Kings are starting to look like the team we thought we'd be seeing for most of the season. We'll get into all that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, the host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show that recaps the night in the NHL, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. The LA Kings played game 18 of the NHL season, game 3 of their 6-game road trip, coming off a very nice couple of wins, one in Pittsburgh, one in Montreal. The Kings were looking for their third win in a row. First time this season they would win 3 in a row if they could get the victory, and they could get that victory thanks to a gritty, come-from-behind 4-3 overtime win over the Maple Leafs. Kings found themselves down 2-0 after the first period, despite playing a pretty good opening 20 minutes. They certainly didn't deserve to be down 2-0 based on the way the game went. Second period saw LA score the next 2 to tie it up, but the Leafs would score late in the second period to take a 1-goal lead, even though, again, the Kings were the better team in the period. They still trailed, and then the Kings put their heads down, rolled their sleeves up, and outworked the Maple Leafs, eventually tying the game up in the third period and then winning it quickly in overtime. Kings get the 4-3 overtime victory. Shots on goal heavily favored the Kings, 37-15. Power plays were even, 0-2 for the Kings, 0-1 for the Maple Leafs. Faceoffs, the Kings were dominated in the faceoff circle, and I have to admit, when I saw these stats, I was surprised. I didn't notice it in the game because the Kings were so better at just about everything else. But Toronto won 71.7% of the faceoffs to the Kings 28.3%. LA won just 15 of 53 draws, while the Maple Leafs won 38 of 53. The Kings were out-hit 26-14, and the Maple Leafs blocked more shots than LA, 20-7. However, with the Kings having a much greater number of shot attempts and shots on goal, that wasn't that big of a surprise. So the big takeaway from this win by the LA Kings, to me, is that the Kings were the better team, and unfortunately for parts of this game, the scoreboard didn't reflect that. However, credit the Kings for continuing to play their game. They didn't deviate from what they knew that was working. Really appreciated the work ethic by the Kings, the patience, the stick-to-itiveness, which may or may not be a word, and for them to earn a hard-fought win when it wasn't as if this was one of those games where the Kings were not the better team, but they somehow found a way to win. They were the better team, and they played like the better team for 3 periods, and they still trailed 2-0 after the first. They still trailed 3-2 after the second, and they just stuck with it. And eventually, there was a course correction, I guess you could call it, and the team that, for the great majority of the game, was the better team, ended up getting the tying goal and then winning it very quickly in overtime. It is an easy thing to tell yourself to do if you're the head coach, to tell your players that's what they need to do. But it's not as easy as it might seem. You're on the ice, you're getting frustrated, you're doing all the right things. There's no reward for it. You could start doing things, trying too hard, getting away from what's working, and next thing you know, you're making mistakes, you're pressing, those kinds of things. And maybe an inexperienced team would have done something like that, an impatient team. But the Kings didn't do that. They stuck with what was working, and they got rewarded for it. And likely that doing that has reinforced that lesson that they seem to have understood. As far as a coach's quote in this one, head coach Jim Hiller said afterwards regarding the Kings kind of sticking with the plan, staying the course, he said, quote, "You can get frustrated very easily, especially when you're down and it's not going your way. What happens is the D starts pitching, the forwards don't cover, and all of a sudden it goes back the other way. They get 3 and probably the game's over." So for me, this was an important part of the game, just to maintain good defensive structure and then stick with it. I'm really proud of the team tonight for that. End quotes. That was head coach Jim Hiller after the Kings' overtime victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs. As far as special teams in this one, the Kings were even in the special teams battle. And I've said for the Kings at this point in the season, I still actually consider that to be a win. Yes, it would be nice to actually see them win the special teams battle. But for now, I think, at least being even has worked out well enough for the Kings. They only committed 1 penalty in this game. And it was, frankly, a ridiculous call. Corey Perry put a light tap of his stick on one of the Maple Leafs players and was called for slashing. It was an awful call. Meanwhile, Brian Dumoulin was tackled behind the net, got hit in the face with the stick, and moments later, the Maple Leafs would score, and there was no call on that play, which was pretty ridiculous. But again, great job by the Kings of staying out of the penalty box, and great job by the Kings of killing off that 1 power play against when they were shorthanded. As for the Kings power play, as was mentioned earlier, it went 0 for 2. The road trip has been great for the Kings, except for one glaring area. That, of course, is the power play. LA now 1 for 9 in the first 3 games of this road trip. The Kings are still going for now with the 5 forward power play unit. After 1 game of being off the top unit, Quentin Byfield was back on the number 1 power play unit. It was Byfield, Perry, Fiala, Kempe, and Kopitar. The number 2 unit, of course, Kuzmenko not on either, being a healthy scratch, which we haven't talked about yet. Laferriere, Doughty, Deneau, Clark, and Moore made up the 2nd unit. I still think the next step to try and improve this power play is to split up Drew Doughty and Brant Clark. And I would assume that Doughty would be the quarterback for the number 1 unit and Clark for the 2nd unit. As far as who would the Kings take off that top unit if they did that with either Doughty or Clark, personally, I would go with Kopitar to put him on the 2nd unit. I don't think Jim Hiller will do that, but I don't know who else he would take off, because you want Perry for that front net presence. You've got great scorers in Q, Fiala, and Kempe, and great puck movers, guys who can really possess the puck well and are good passers. And I'm not saying Anze Kopitar doesn't do those things well, but if you're going to take someone off, I would think that Kopitar would be the guy. But like I said, I really don't think Jim Hiller would do that. We did see, as I briefly mentioned, a lineup change. It was not unexpected. Andrei Kuzmenko was a healthy scratch for this game. This is, of course, after he got benched in the 3rd period in the previous game. Jeff Malott got into the lineup. He was on the 4th line. Warren Fogle was back off the 4th line onto the 3rd line, and Joel Armia remained on the top line with Anze Kopitar and Adrian Kempe. I will repeat myself again. I do believe at some point Andrei Kuzmenko will have to be put back on that top line at some point. I think they need his offensive abilities. They need him on the power play, though certainly the way things are going now. At some point, that said, I get why Jim Hiller is going to stick with this for now, as far as any lineup changes. We'll get more into what Jeff Malott did in this game coming up in just a bit. But things are going well right now, and unless there's an injury, there really isn't any need to change anything. The Kuzmenko thing, what we saw, he was demoted to the 3rd line and now out of the lineup altogether. Maybe this is a motivation for him that once he does get his opportunity, maybe he'll be raring to go to get back in the lineup and show what he can do. So, not only are you getting a player out of the lineup who hasn't kind of really worked out so far this year, Everything else is working, so you can afford to kind of do that at some point. But I do think, again, at some point, I do think we will see Andrei Kuzmenko back in the lineup, and really the only place he is suited to play is on that Kopitar line. But we'll see. So the Kings are now 9-5-4 on the season, 8-1-2 on the road. They are tied for the most road wins in the NHL with the New York Rangers. The Kings are now on a season-high 3-game winning streak. The win over Toronto was the 5th time this season the Kings picked up at least a point after trailing by 2 or more goals in a game this season. So this is a Kings team that does not quit. This is a Kings team that has the ability to come back, which is not something we've seen a lot of from the LA Kings over recent years. This was also the 8th overtime game for the Kings this season. That is the most in the NHL. But the most important thing, another win, 2 more points, and the Kings keeping this winning streak going on this 6-game road trip. 3 games down, 3 games to go. And so far, those 3 games have been fantastic. The Byfield line comes up big. We'll talk about that next. You're on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That is why I've been using DripDrop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. DripDrop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of the leading brands, using a science-backed formula tested by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. It actually tastes amazing. My go-to flavor is fruit punch, and it's become my secret weapon for staying sharp and energized through long days. Hydration has become non-negotiable for me. DripDrop helps me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly just better overall. Right now, DripDrop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to DripDrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now and keep your body and mind performing at their best with DripDrop. All right, let's get into some of the individual performances for the LA Kings in their big 4-3 overtime win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Mentioned the lineup for the LA Kings, just kind of going over that again. Your top 2 lines were the same as the last couple of games. Armia still on that top line with Kopitar and Kempe. The Byfield line has been the same with Quentin Byfield, Kevin Fiala, and Alex Laferriere for the most part, certainly over the last few games, and they've been great. We'll get more into them in a minute. Warren Foegele back on the 3rd line with Philip Deneau and Trevor Moore. Jeff Malott on the 4th line with Alex Turcotte and Corey Perry. The defensive pairings have been the same: Anderson, Doughty, Edmondson, Clark, Dumoulin, Ceci, and the goaltender Darcy Kemper once again getting the start in this one. And let's start with Darcy Kemper. First goal he allowed was on a breakaway. He got a piece of it, but it trickled behind him and just over the goal line. Adrian Kempe turned it over in the middle of the ice in the Leafs end, and the Leafs player just took the puck and went right down the ice on a breakaway. I don't know what Joel Edmondson and Brant Clark were doing on that play. It would certainly seem to think that one of those guys should have been back in a position to try and defend that, but they weren't. And to me, that one was not on Darcy Kemper. They never showed a replay of that play to kind of see where the defensemen were. It seemed like they were both kind of glued to their side of the boards, which is not where they're supposed to be. Now, again, Kempe turned it over, and that's on him, but somebody should have had his back, to me, in that situation. Second goal that Kemper allowed in was that ridiculous no call where Brian Dumoulin got taken down behind the net. I have no doubt that had Dumoulin taken down the Leafs offensive player in that situation, he would have been called for a penalty. And I'm not suggesting that this is any kind of Toronto conspiracy. I just think that, unfortunately, referees will let offensive players get away with things in the offensive zone that they won't let defensive players get away with. And it's not fair. I don't really understand it. But it's like I said, it's kind of like if you're a football fan and you watch football, why does the wide receiver get to push and pull and do the things he does, while the defensive back, if he does that, he gets the flag? It's because they let offensive players get away with more than defensive players. Anyway, that one was a player right in front of the crease scoring. after that non-call that should have been a penalty against Toronto. It wasn't. Alex Laferriere did not tie up the stick of John Tavares, and he was able to score. So again, I don't think that was on Kemper either. In the third goal, the Kings again let John Tavares get in front of the net. Philip Deneau lost track of him, and he put in a backhand shot past an outstretched leg of the Kings netminder. I don't think any of those three goals were soft goals. I do think that Kemper had some pretty good saves in this one. There was one on the Leafs' lone power play that was probably his best of the game. Now, he allowed 3 goals on just 15 shots, and that doesn't help the percentages, the numbers. But I still thought Darcy Kemper played a very solid game. He improves to 7-3 at the end of the season, and that is now 4 straight wins for him. Quentin Byfield, back-to-back games with a goal and an assist for Q, which is obviously great to see. He has been, as I've said, very good in just about every facet of his game this season, except for putting the puck in the net. And I had said that after scoring a goal last game, that hopefully that was the start of something for Q as far as putting the puck in the net. And, well, 2 for 2 in 2 games. This one was a one-timer from the left faceoff dot off a nice feed from Drew Doughty for the game winner in overtime in Toronto. He's from the area. He was waving to the crowd after he scored. I don't know if he was saying goodbye to all the Leafs fans or if he might have actually been waving to his friends and family that I'm sure were in attendance for the game. But another big moment for Quentin Byfield. Again, this is a great sign. Need to get him going as far as scoring some goals. Everything else has been great. He now has 4 goals and 16 points in 18 games this season. Speaking of scoring goals in back-to-back games, how about Kevin Fiala? He had an amazing job of sticking with it on his goal. Shot on goal, was blocked in front, gets the rebound, shot on goal, save made by the goalie. And then the third time was the charm as he would score on his 3rd straight shot. Great effort, great job of sticking with it. That's 3 straight games now for Kevin Fiala scoring a goal. Leads the team with 9 goals on the season and now has 14 points as well. I've talked about it before, and we're going to enjoy it while we can. But when Kevin Fiala is going, and I don't know that I would categorize him as a streaky player. I just think there's times when he's playing the game the right way, and then there's times where he kind of gets away from that. Right now, he's playing the game the right way. He is active. He is engaged. He is involved. He's skating hard. He's hustling. And he's getting his shots, and he's being aggressive. So hopefully we see a lot more of this Kevin Fiala the rest of the season, because when he's playing this way, it's usually a very good sign of team success for the LA Kings. Warren Foegele, he scored the Kings' first goal in this one, just a nice wrist shot from the right faceoff dot. He beat the goalie glove side. Nice job by Drew Doughty of getting him the puck with some speed, and a nice job by Philip Deneau of driving to the net, taking a defender with him, and giving Foegele just a little bit more room to get that shot off. In addition, I thought that Foegele was just flying around the ice. And this is the Warren Foegele we got used to seeing last year. That energy, providing that spark. He had a couple of diving plays just to keep pucks alive. It was pretty obvious very early on. He was playing with an edge and an intensity, and he was really engaged in this game. And again, great to see that Warren Foegele. He makes things happen. He jumps off the ice when he's playing this way. And I thought that was great to see from him. And also back-to-back goals for Warren Foegele. Remember, he had the empty netter in the win over Montreal, and now he gets his 3rd goal of the season in this one. Talked about the Byfield line all showing up. Quentin Byfield, Kevin Fiala, and Alex Laferriere scored the 3rd goal in the 3rd period to tie this one up. Brant Clark puts one of his patented little wrist shots towards the net, just a soft puck that is easily deflected, and that is exactly what Alex Laferriere did. Just a great job. He was engaged by the defender, but he kept his hands and his stick free, and he just got a piece of the puck, changed direction, and goes into the back of the net. That is a lot easier said than done, to be engaged physically, to have a guy kind of all over you, but you're able to, he was really kind of reaching around the guy as he was almost hugging him, keeping his stick free and able to get his stick on that puck for that really nice deflection. We saw the one Fiala had while he was kind of falling down and they called it a high stick. He has shown he's got a pretty good ability, the hand-eye coordination for the deflection. So remember earlier in the year, the Kings were kind of moving him all over the place. He was on the top line. He was on the fourth line. And he certainly has, I think, shown that he does belong on that second line, on that Byfield line. He's got good chemistry going with Q and Kevin. And he does a lot of the dirty work on that line. He's the guy who gets in front of the net. He's the guy who goes in for the forecheck. He's the guy who gets the puck to Byfield and Fiala to let them kind of do their thing. So I think he fits in perfectly on that line. That line had a really, really good game against Toronto. And for Laferriere, that's his fourth goal on the season with 9 points. Mentioned Jeff Malott was in the lineup, didn't have a point in this one, but I actually thought he played pretty well. He was hitting. He had a couple of decent scoring chances. Now, if he could play like this all season, maybe he could find a home on the fourth line. I don't expect that will happen. I do think he has earned himself another game. So I do think Jeff Malott will be in the lineup on the fourth line in Ottawa on Saturday. And again, with the Kings playing the way they are, probably don't anticipate a lot of changes. But again, I think we'll see Kuzmenko at some point, but not right now. Andrei Kopitar, no points for the captain, still at 1,287, still 21 points away from passing Marcel Dion to become the LA Kings all-time leading scorer. Checking some of the stats for the Kings. They got goals from Byfield, Fiala, Laferriere, and Foegele. Drew Doughty led the Kings with 2 assists. Also, Byfield, Kempe, Anderson, Ceci, Clark, and Dumoulin each had an assist. And for Kempe, his team-leading 13th assist and his team-leading 19th point. You know what I want to say. Alex Laferriere and Corey Perry led the team in shots on goal. Each had 5. Drew Doughty led the team in block shots with 2. Alex Laferriere and Jeff Malott led the team in hits with 4. Drew Doughty led the Kings in time on ace with 21 minutes and 22 seconds. Philip Deneau was the Kings' best faceoff man. He won 7 of 12 faceoffs. All right, up next, we're going to crown 3 Kings and talk about some news involving Adrian Kempe. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next bucket to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, it's time to give our 3 crowns for a Kings win. 3 players that stood out more than the others. And again, a lot of candidates for this, but I'm going to go with Quentin Byfield with the game-winning goal and an assist in this one. He gets a crown. So does Alex Laferriere for scoring that game-tying goal and just playing some good, solid hockey all the way around. And Warren Foegele, his big goal in this one that got the Kings going, gets him a crown as well. Kevin Fiala could have gotten a crown once again. Several players were certainly playing well in this game. So always great when you got a lot of different players that have a chance at being crowned. But I'm going with Byfield, Laferriere, and Warren Foegele. Didn't want to get a quote from one of our Kings that is wearing a crown, and that's Alex Laferriere. He told LA Kings insider Zach Dooley after the game, quote, "Games like that are tough. When you're behind in a game, but you feel like you've been controlling the whole game, it's tough, but I think that shows the resilience from our group to be able to stick with it and not give up on each other and find it there in the end. Patience is huge. If you look at our locker room, guys like Kopi, Piers, Dewey, they've been through pretty much any kind of game, and you look at those guys and they're patient. They're not trying to force things. You look at that, and you can look at that in yourself and just be like, it's going to happen. You just don't have to force things," end quote. So lesson learned for Alex Laferriere and the rest of the LA Kings with the win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. We have a little bit of Adrian Kempe news, maybe. Credit to Dennis Bernstein of NHL Network Radio and the fourth period. He covers the LA Kings. He's on X at Dennis TFP. He put out a tweet on Thursday, which said, quote, chatted with LA Kings GM Ken Holland prior to opening faceoff in Toronto. Still optimistic on Adrian Kempe contract front and encouraged by Kings' better play over the past few weeks. 7-2-2 over their last 11. Dennis also put on there a very nice little tease. He said that we'll see. Well, he said we'll let you know what else he had to share on that, and he was talking about his next episode of his podcast. So apparently that was the teaser for what Ken Holland said, and apparently there's a little more, and he's going to wait and share that on his podcast. So a professional tease there by Dennis Bernstein. I think the obvious follow-up when he says he's still optimistic about getting a deal done with Adrian Kempe, the next question is, why are you optimistic? And does that mean there has been progress? And if not, why not? So we'll see. It's the same thing we've heard from Ken Holland. He said the same thing this entire time. He's optimistic a deal will get done. That's great. Why is it not done now? What has been taking so long? Doesn't make any sense to me. You guys know how I feel about this. This should have been done long, long ago. It's ridiculous it's gotten to this point, but it has. And we'll see. We'll see if Dennis Bernstein has some good follow-up quotes from Ken Holland in his next podcast episode. If you watch the game on the FanDuel Sports Network or ESPN Plus, then you saw Ray Ferraro was doing the color commentary on the TV side in for Jim Fox, who's taking a few games off. Some people like Ray Ferraro, some people don't. I happen to think he does a really, really good job. He does national games on ESPN. I think he does some work in Canada as well. So he does a lot of national games. And I think he's going to be on the call for the game Saturday in Ottawa as well. So I don't know if this is the first steps towards Jim Fox maybe taking a step back or so. We've had Jim Fox many times on this show. I did ask him at one point, does he have an exit plan? This was after Nick Nixon was retiring. Obviously, Bob Miller has been gone for a while now. And Jim would only say very confidently, yes, I know what my plan is. Didn't share what that plan was. But I don't think Ray Ferraro is a candidate to replace Jim Fox if Jim Fox is thinking about calling it quits here at some point. Ray Ferraro, again, he lives in Vancouver. His wife, Cami Granado, is an executive with the Canucks. He has his jobs where he does these national games here and there. I think he's just taken an opportunity to kind of fill in. I don't see him moving back to LA where his wife is working in Vancouver and that kind of thing. Although he did say that he did love playing for the LA Kings and wish they were better back when he played in LA, but he had a good experience with the Kings. But anyway, he does a good job. I don't know. I don't think that this is any kind of a starting of the process of Jim Fox possibly retiring. But at the same time, he's been doing it a long time and he's been doing it very, very well. And at some point, it's time to step aside and kind of enjoy the later years of your life. I don't know if Jim Fox is at that point yet. We kind of forget how old he is because he looks so good and still looks so young and still has that personality. But I would say this very confidently, and I believe this through and through. Jim Fox should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I've seen some other guys from the media side get in the Hockey Hall of Fame who have been good at their job. They have not been as good as Jim Fox. They have not done it as long as Jim Fox has. Why he's not in the Hockey Hall of Fame at this point, I do not know, frankly. But I firmly believe Jim Fox deserves to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame for what he's done for the game as a broadcaster. And I don't know how that process works. I don't know if he's maybe been a finalist for it before. I don't know. But he absolutely belongs in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I did want to check the standings real quick because a lot of Pacific Division teams were in action Thursday night. The Ducks lost to the Red Wings 6-3. They're still at 23 points. The Kings are 1 point back of the Ducks for first place in the Pacific with 22 points. Seattle, fresh off a win over the Winnipeg Jets Thursday night, is 1 point back of LA in third place in the division. Edmonton is 1 point back of Seattle. The Oilers lost to the Blue Jackets on Thursday. And Vegas, who lost in overtime to the Islanders, is 1 point back of the Oilers and tied with the Sharks for 19 points. So things are very, very tight in the Pacific Division. There are certainly some surprise teams there, like the Ducks and the Seattle Kraken. The Oilers and Vegas have underachieved so far, but are lurking. So it's the Kings are in second place, just 1 point out of first place. And I would say there was a point in time a few weeks back that we would have been probably surprised that that was the case. But Kings have won 3 in a row, looking to make it 4 straight coming up on Saturday in Ottawa as they continue to play great hockey on the road. Our next show will be following that Kings Ottawa game. It's a 4 p.m. Pacific time start time. And we will be I will not be doing a Locked On NHL game night show that night. So a post-game show following Kings Senators will be coming up earlier than normal. You won't have to wait till the next morning to check that out. So that will be coming up in our next episode of Locked On LA Kings. Hey, thank you for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NHL Game Night with a certain someone who's hosting those shows. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national level. Find NHL Game Night on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. For you everydayers, as I mentioned, our next show will be following that Kings Ottawa game. Or I should say we are going to have a show following the Kings Ottawa game, but our next show will be our fan feedback show. If you want to get an email in for that, lockedoneddie@gmail.com is the email address, EDDIE. And you're always welcome to post your thoughts. If you're watching on YouTube in the comments section, we appreciate that. Stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings go.